Hi, 8th graders. Welcome back. Today we're reviewing Unit 4 content on Louisiana government. Our goals are to describe the structures and powers of the Louisiana state government and compare it to the United States government. We know that the United States government is divided into three levels using federalism. We know we have the national government, which is outlined in the U.S. Constitution. We have state governments like the Louisiana state government and local governments like our Orleans parish government. So we know that constitutions are written to outline the structures and powers of a government. So if you're not sure how the US government works, you could look to our constitution. It would tell you how the powers are divided up. So we have one national constitution for the whole country, but each state also has a constitution to outline the powers and structures of their state government. The United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So the Louisiana state constitution cannot go against what the US Constitution says. And so we see here the US Constitution affects all of the states in our country, whereas our state constitution just says how our state is going to be run. And then we know that you can go even a layer smaller and look at local governments. So one of the reasons why we divide up our government among these three different layers is that it makes it a lot easier to manage this large country. The US Constitution, so our national government, is going to handle bigger things like foreign policy or protecting all of our citizens, or like things like Medicare and Medicaid that affect all citizens in the country. State governments handle much smaller things, state budgets and state programs, whereas local governments manage even smaller things like managing your local trash pickup or local roads. Because we have the ability to make laws at the US, state, and local level, we have judges and courts for each of these three levels to enforce or to interpret the laws for each of these levels of government. And here we see examples of leaders from our national all the way down to local government. We have Donald Trump, who is president of the entire United States of America. John Bel Edwards is the governor of Louisiana today. So he's the chief executive of our state government. And Latoya Cantrell will soon be sworn in as the mayor of New Orleans. And she's in charge of the local level. So a little bit about the preambles. The preamble to both the United States and Louisiana constitutions introduce the document, and they state the purpose of government. Both the US and the Louisiana governments exist to protect, provide safety, and promote the general welfare of its citizens. It's important to note that both the national and state constitutions and their preambles were written by citizens for citizens. And again, the goal of government, according to these preambles, is that they're going to protect their citizens. Here we see the text of our US preamble and our state preamble. We notice that the two are pretty similar. The US one is a lot more general, and that makes sense because they need it to work for a lot of different people across the country. Whereas the Louisiana state preamble gets very, very specific. We see some evidence of religion in here, and we also see some really, really specific examples of what our government is going to do for its people. But one major similarity between them both is that they both say the purpose of government is to protect the citizens. And so, because our governments are looking out for us as citizens, some of the things that our government provides for us now is protection. We have a military that goes off and fights wars and would protect us if someone were to come and invade our shores. Another way they provide for citizens is through things like SNAP, government programs that provide assistance when people need it. So if you can't afford to buy food, the government will help provide that money for you. And things like Medicaid and Medicare, health insurance for people who can't afford it or are too old to work. And so going down, we talked about national government and state government. Now let's look at local government. The lowest level of government is the local government. They run much smaller things like parks, trash pickup, and enforcing local laws. Louisiana's local governments are divided into parishes. So we're the only state in the country that has parishes instead of counties. But again, these local governments are dealing with really like small things, day-to-day operations. We in New Orleans probably see our local government in action a little bit more than the others because we're living in that community, and they are the ones that are managing the community. So here are some of the things that local governments do. And again, you're noticing it's small day-to-day things that affect us all, like managing libraries and sports fields, parks, taking out trash, managing electricity and natural gas. The local government deals with smaller things. And so now we're going to shift gears away from the structure of government and those three levels of national, state, and local, and talk about something that's even bigger than US government, and that's foreign policy. Foreign means dealing with a different country, and policy is how you handle them. So it's how we handle other countries. It's most governments in the world strategy in dealing with other nations to not go to war if possible. And so we call foreign policy the strategy of dealing with other nations. If the US or other nations pass legislation that impact Louisiana's imports or exports, then Louisiana's economy is impacted. So we want to know about what other countries are doing to think about, are we going to be hurt? Like when China announced tariffs on some of the goods like soybeans coming out of the United States, we want to know, is that going to hurt US farmers? Are we going to be paying more to ship our stuff to other people? And so again, with foreign policy, generally countries are trying to make deals to avoid conflicts. The United Nations is an organization that the United States is part of. It's an international organization, meaning it brings together people from all over the world. And the purpose of it is to keep the peace around the world. So the United Nations may get involved if there's a conflict somewhere else, and the idea is to try to stop that conflict as soon as possible. And finally, Louisiana interacts with other nations by trading things such as oil and natural gas in its major ports in New Orleans. We know that we have plenty of natural gas and oil fields in the Gulf of Mexico and nearby, and so we make a lot of money by shipping or exporting those to other countries. All right, these review questions don't count. Have a great day.